Alright, many fail to answer this question, and there's nothing to be ashamed of because I always tell people that if you want to learn physics, if you want to learn any subject, all subjects are languages. It doesn't matter if it's English, doesn't matter if it's doesn't matter what language it is, right? But as you see, physics is in English, right? But you have to learn vocabulary. And this is why many people cannot solve a simple problem like this. And if you know how to solve this problem, just go ahead and quickly just put in the answers because trust me, you could do this problem mentally just by understanding the vocabulary that is in a problem. So when you solve problems, you have to focus on the vocabulary that's in that problem. So we have this problem over here. It's about distance and displacement, and it says that a biker travels 3 kilometers west, then reverses. As you see, reverses, many people don't know what is that. Reverses means to go back from where you are, right? So if you're going this way and then you reverse means the opposite, okay? So this is something just for you to understand the meaning. Reverses direction and goes 2 kilometers towards the east. And now we need to find three things. They're asking us to find three things. What is total displacement? What is the overall distance covered? What is the absolute value magnitude of the displacement? Alright, so let me go ahead and let me explain some vocabulary in this problem because this video is all about understanding, not really learning, right? Because you should understand before you learn something. So let's write what we will be comparing here. So you just go ahead and you can just follow what I will show you, right? So we have distance and displacement, and this is something many get confused. So simple drawing right now, I will explain what is distance, what is displacement, right? So let's say you are here, right? And this is your house. Let's call this your house, and you want to get to the park. This is the park. Let me just write H for house and P for park. And let's say you start riding a bike, right? And then you go this way. You go like this. Something happened to your phone. Let's say the GPS started to trip or some error happened to it, right? And you just went all around and finally you got to the park. This all of this you travel. Let's say you rode a bike or you walked or you whatsoever run. You travel all this path. Oh, that path here we call it distance. And it makes sense, right? Because if you say I run this distance, basically makes sense because you will be tired by the end. So distance is all of this. But now displacement is different because displacement is all about your starting position, which is here. This is your starting position. Let's call it your initial, right? This is where you started. And here is where you ended. This is your final. So it will be a straight line because displacement is a straight line. Just don't forget that. And now, to for you to better understand distance and displacement. Distance, let me write it over here. Let me write over here so that you can understand because I really want you to understand, not really learn. If you can understand something, well, it'll be easier to learn other problems and be able to solve other problems. So it's better to for understand than rather just to learn to do something. Now, distance, right? Distance is just total movement. You saw we were moving like crazy over here. That's the total movement. So we just needed to add all of this, right? If you rode a bike, you need to add all these kilometers. You'll be pretty tired. So now displacement, right? Let's put a big D here. Displacement. Well, displacement is different, guys, because displacement, as I said, right, is where you ended. You ended over here and compare from where you started. So you always compare where you ended. Let's call that final. And you always compare where you started, your initial. So these are simple ways or simple concepts to understand. Now, here comes now let's look at a problem. Let's see how can we solve this problem now. It says a biker travel 3 kilometers to the west. Okay, so that's what I say, right? You have to know vocabulary west. Where's the west? Then it says reversed direction and goes 2 kilometers towards the east. Now, where's the east, guys? You have to learn things in math, in physics. You have to know your direction. So this is north, this is south, this is east, and this is west. This is something for you to open your mind. Now let's look at west and east. If we can simply take this out, right? And if we look over here, this is east and this is west. This is a straight line. Yeah, look, this is a straight line. And of course, let's go deeper now, okay? So, if you are familiar with the number line, this is an example of the number line. So, let's look at this here. If you go east, right? This is your positive path. It's like a number line. If you go towards the left, which is west, it's the negative path, okay? Now, we will calculate A. What is the total displacement? And how do we do that? Remember, displacement, we need to compare the initial, compare the final and the initial. So it says the biker traveled 3 kilometers to the west. So actually the biker is here. Hasn't moved yet until now. It moved 3 kilometers. 1, 2, 3. And look here, guys. Displacement, we are comparing, right? So it's moving towards the left. So what is that? That's a negative 3. Okay? But it then says that the biker reverse direction means the biker is going back. And let's go 2, right? Let's move back 2 kilometers. So we have 1, 2. And this here, if we go back, we will have negative 2. Well, this one over here will be negative 1. Now, guys, you have to remember the simple formula displacement. There are many ways to show this formula. I'll give you just a quick examples. We can use x, we use x f minus x I for initial, or we can use s f minus s I. So this is the basic formula for displacement. Now, knowing this, what is your final? Well, you see right here, right? You went this way and then you reach negative 3 kilometers, but you didn't stop. You didn't stop. That cannot be your final. You didn't stop, but you just decided, no, this is far. Let me just go back. So you just went back. You haven't stopped, and boom, you stop over here. So this is your final, guys. What is your final? So your final is negative 1. So always focus on where you end first. Then you go back and see, where did I start it from? Well, you started from the origin. You were, before you moved, you were here, 0 kilometers. Maybe that was your house. That's the place where you started, right? 0. So minus 0. Now, negative 1 minus 0. will be negative 1 kilometers. Always don't forget your units. Never forget your units. If not, you will know what we will. Your professor, whosoever, will not know what you are talking about. Now, you see, it's not complicated. Once you understand the definitions in problems, we can easily target and we can easily solve these problems over here. Now, it's asking you for the total distance. But before we talk about the total distance, let me talk a little bit about displacement, guys. So let me write here on the side displacement. And I want to tell you something about displacement. It's a vector. What does that mean? What does vector stand for? Well, it means that displacement can be either negative. In this case, this is negative. Oh wow, I forget my sign. Excuse me for that. Or it can be positive. In this case, negative 1 minus 0 is negative 1. Alright, we got it right? So displacement is a vector. It can be negative or positive. And something else about displacement is that displacement also has magnitude. And if you wonder, oh, what is magnitude? I don't know what is the definition of magnitude. Well, easy. Let me give it to you. Magnitude simply stands for size, how something big is, and this one magnitude has no direction. So don't forget magnitude is just a simple meaning, size and no direction. Alright, now you know about displacement, right? It's a vector, it's negative or positive. Now, what about distance? Now we can talk about distance. So let me write it over here. Let me write it on this side. Let me write distance. Now, what is distance, guys? What is distance? Well, distance, guys, is very easy. So distance is always positive, okay? Doesn't matter the direction. If you remember the previous drawing, we were going all around curving. That's the distance. You just travel these kilometers, so you cannot say, oh, you understand, right? So that's the distance you travel. So therefore, knowing this, that distance is positive, we simply need to add. So if you went 3 kilometers towards the west, it cannot be negative 3 because negative 3 means that you didn't travel those those kilometers, which really doesn't make any sense. So negative 3, right? Doesn't make sense. So distance means that you need to add all the kilometers you traveled. So we will have you travel first 3 kilometers and then you travel 2 kilometers. So you quite travel a lot, right? So you simply add these two. This will give you a total of 5 kilometers. And also, distance means adding the absolute value. What is absolute? Absolute means that any number like if it's negative 3 is in these two bars, that stand for absolute. You simply go ahead and you add. So if you add negative 3 and if you add the absolute value of negative 3, it's 3. And if you add the absolute value of 2, it's 2, right? 3 plus 2 is 5. So that makes a lot of sense now. So this is the difference, guys, of distance and displacement. Don't get confused about it. Now, so we solved B and A. Good to go. Now, what is the absolute value magnitude of displacement? Now, let me ask you a question. What is magnitude? We already talked about magnitude. It's here, right? So over here, it's about size and it has no direction. So magnitude is also related to absolute. So when we when we find the magnitude of displacement, guys, we always need to find the absolute value. That's why it's asking you what is the absolute value? In other words, parenthesis, magnitude of displacement. Remember, displacement has is a vector and it has magnitude. Meanwhile, distance only has magnitude. So magnitude can be positive, or I think, not mistaken, magnitude is always positive. If I am mistaken, let me know down in the comments. And what is the magnitude of displacement? So we need to take displacement, which is over here, which is negative 1 kilometers, and we need to find the absolute value. So how do we find absolute value? We need to use these two bars here. So that is 1 kilometer, and the absolute value of negative 1 kilometer, it will be 1. So the magnitude is 1 kilometer. Alright, so magnitude is 1 kilometer. There we have it. So these are our answers, and we can just go ahead and write the answers beside it. So for total displacement, that is negative 1 kilometer. For the overall distance covered, we covered and we traveled 5 kilometers, and the absolute magnitude, the absolute value of the displacement, which is negative 1 kilometers, is 1 kilometer. I hope the definitions are clear to you, and let me know down in the comments what do you think other tips that you can give the viewers to improve physics knowledge and